Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into a mystery that is literally tearing the sports world apart right now. That absolutely chaotic July 7, 2026 World Cup clash between Egypt and Argentina. How on earth did a seemingly routine play snowball into a massive global scandal? Well, we're going to use the raw facts, the hard data, and the actual statements from the folks involved to figure that out. Look, we aren't here to take sides today. We're just laying out the information so you can get the full picture of what everyone is calling the VARgentina controversy.
So, let's dive right in. To really wrap our heads around this incident, we have to look exactly 100 yards away from the goal. 100 yards, the entire length of the pitch. That is where a single, super minor action, just a step toe, sparked a full-blown global conspiracy. It's a pretty wild look at how modern sports tech can essentially stretch space and time, taking an action from the total opposite end of the field and using it to just erase history.
Section 1. The 100-yard ghost. A magical moment completely erased.
Think about the sheer improbability of this setup for a second. Argentina walked into the round of 16 as the absolute, undisputed defending giants of the sport. But for 79 minutes, they looked shockingly vulnerable. The Egyptian pharaohs were playing the game of their absolute lives. Faster, stronger, completely outplaying the kings of the pitch. I mean, at one point, Lionel Messi himself steps up to take a penalty, and Egypt's keeper, Mostafa Ziko, makes the save of a lifetime. Egypt was up 2-0. They were literally minutes away from an earth-shattering upset.
But let's map out exactly how that reality shattered into pieces. First, Egypt's Mostafa Ziko scores a gorgeous breakaway goal. It's 3-0 in theory, the game is sealed, the crowd is going absolutely nuts. But then, the whistle blows. VAR Jerome Brassard calls down to referee Francois Letexier. The goal gets erased. And why? Because 10 entire seconds before the ball hit the net, and 100 yards away at the other end of the pitch, Egypt's Marwan Attia stepped on Lisandro Martinez's foot during a turnover. Just like that, the goal vanishes. The momentum violently shifts. Then, deep in stoppage time, Egypt's Mohamed Salah goes down in the Argentina box. Looks like he's pulled down by the shirt. Egypt is screaming for a review, but crickets. The whistle stays totally silent. And seconds after that non-call, Argentina launches a counterattack, and Enzo Fernandez sinks the winning goal. Final score, 3-2, Argentina.
Section 2. The rise of VARgentina, and where the momentum shifts.
When you put these two moments side by side, you uncover this really stark contrast that immediately fueled all the Egyptian anger. On one hand, you've got this heavily scrutinized foul from 10 seconds prior, all the way across the pitch, which gets reviewed and penalized to wipe out a goal. A lot of critics, including analyst Rob Green, were quick to point out that surgically dissecting a play that far back is really not why VAR was brought into the game. And then, on the flip side, you have Mohamed Salah's penalty claim in the box, a potential shirt pull in the most critical final moments of the game, and it is completely ignored, unpenalized. The comparison between that hypervigilance on the first call and the sudden total silence on the second one, that is the absolute foundation of this controversy. And man, the reaction was immediate and explosive. In the tunnel, right after the match, Egypt's Mostafa Ziko, the guy who had his game-sealing goal taken away, he didn't mince words. He plainly stated, quote, "This tournament is fixed." In that exact moment, a hashtag was born that just took over the internet like wildfire. Hashtag VARgentina. This wasn't just post-game frustration anymore. It was a formal accusation broadcast directly to the world.
But FIFA wasn't about to just sit there quietly. Pierluigi Collina, FIFA's referee-in-chief, firmly fired back, stating that the allegations were entirely unfounded. He fiercely defended the independence of his officials, insisting the department isn't influenced by anyone at all. The official stance is actually pretty simple. A foul is a foul. The rules dictate that if a foul happens at the start of an attacking phase, it has to be penalized, and it doesn't matter how far away it happened or how much time ticked by before the goal.
Section 3. The data of favoritism. Is there actually a pattern here?
To figure out if there's a real pattern, we have to rewind to the group stages. Critics immediately pointed to a string of instances where Argentina seemingly benefited from some really unusual or unreviewed refereeing choices. Against Algeria, Lionel Messi escapes a red card for a studs-up challenge. Against Austria, an unreviewed foul directly leads to an Argentina goal. And then against Switzerland, a Swiss player actually gets sent off for simulation through a super bizarre mistaken identity rule application. Look, on their own, maybe these are just isolated incidents, but string them together, and they start building a really heavy narrative.
Which brings us to this one, haunting little statistic from Netc Sport. 0. As of July 11th in the tournament, That was the exact number of unfavorable VAR interventions Argentina had experienced. Just 0.
When you stack that data up against every other quarterfinalist, the picture gets incredibly striking. Literally, every single other team that made it to this late stage of the tournament had at least one unfavorable VAR intervention go against them. Argentina stood totally alone with 0. For the fans and analysts crying foul, this glaring discrepancy provides exactly the kind of hard numerical evidence they need to back up those bias claims. It shifts the whole argument from, hey, we got unlucky, to, hey, look at the math.
Now, you have to remember this statistical skepticism isn't just existing in a vacuum. It's heavily amplified by the looming shadow of recent geopolitical interference in the sport. Specifically, fans keep pointing back to the Trump FIFA Balogun scandal. You know, that recent moment where a player's red card was actually reversed following direct political pressure from the White House. The public logic here is pretty straightforward, even if it is speculative. If high-level political pressure can successfully influence a ban and force FIFA's hand, what else is possible? It creates this baseline environment where fans are already totally primed to distrust the institution.
Part 4. Trust versus Technology. The severe real-world fallout.
The aftermath of the final whistle was chaotic, it was dangerous, and it extended way beyond the pitch. The Egyptian Football Association didn't just complain, they filed a formal complaint alleging a literal discrimination crime and demanded the outright expulsion of the refereeing crew. The human cost here was immediate and severe. Referee Francois Letexhier was forced to deactivate his Instagram account after getting bombarded with death threats. And over in the digital realm, the Argentina FA's official email account was actually hacked, briefly sending out a message claiming that they, quote, did not win fairly.
At the heart of this entire explainer is a question of application, not really the rule itself. It's a pretty accepted fact that Marwan Atia did step on Martinez's foot. The foul absolutely happened. But the rule for the video assistant referee explicitly states they should only step in to overturn an on-field decision if there is a clear and obvious error. The massive point of contention here is that threshold. Why does the threshold for intervening seem to constantly shift depending on the team playing, the specific player, or the minute of the game?
Ultimately, what you should take away from all this is the growing, really palpable frustration of fans across the globe. Sports are inherently human, right? They're flawed, they're passionate, they're incredibly fast-paced. But fans are starting to feel like that human spirit is being hijacked by a digital tool. It's not just the fact that a machine is making calls, it's the perception that this machine is selective. It's stepping in with microscopic precision to erase a beautiful goal, but then turning a total blind eye to a glaring penalty shout just moments later.
Technology like VAR was introduced to end the era of blatant physical fouls and missed calls. It was supposed to bring perfect fairness to the beautiful game. Instead, it seems to have ushered in a totally new era of profound digital suspicion. As we look at all the data, the erased goals, and the official defenses, it leaves us questioning the very integrity of the tournament. So what do you think? Is the system finally fair, just catching the tricky fouls that human eyes miss, or is it selectively flawed? Is the 2026 World Cup a triumph of sport or a masterpiece of manipulation?